Hi, welcome to my new video. Are you thinking of switching to Linux and you are completely overwhelmed with all the possibilities? Here are some tips from my side which might be helpful to you. Let's go. Switching from Microsoft Windows to Linux changes many things on multiple levels, and in the previous videos I've more focused on the technical aspect, which is obviously quite essential here. But what I really want to focus here on Windows, you have primarily one version. So if you are looking up a tutorial for this one version, and Microsoft Windows tries more to be an all-rounder operating system, which is quite okay if you just need to do some business work, for example, but it really starts to stutter around, for example, if you are trying to get into a niche aspect, let's just say, may it be high performance audio production, may it be high quality video rendering if you are a game developer, etc., for example. And then you switch to Linux. And on Linux, you see thousands of different Linux distros. And especially when you go to YouTube, there you see now every second week, this is the best Linux ever. You need to switch immediately, more or less. And when you have absolutely no idea where to start, SorenOS is a great starting Linux distro, by the way. I would highly recommend just to ignore everything, all other Linux distros for the first time. Just use SorenOS. In the description you can find a video about it. But anyway, and then you find here there is Fedora Silverblue, amazing for programming. And then in the comment sections you see, yeah, it was great, it was the best distro ever. And then a comment below says, yeah, for the exact same use case, it was absolutely the worst Linux distro for me. And this is what I'm really trying to get into now, is that when you are watching a video about the best Linux distro ever, which is inherently could not be true. Why is that the case? Because how good a Linux distro is doesn't just depend on the hardware you're using, doesn't just depend on the operating system itself, obviously, does not just depend on the packages that are available on this Linux distro, are not dependent on the stability of the Linux distro. I mean, that too, but not primarily. But the most important part is, what kind of user are you? What kind of use case do you want to get out of your Linux distro? Because, for example, are you trying to, for example, work with music production, for example? An immutable Linux distro like BlendOS, VanillaOS, blah blah blah, might not be as great for you because they have a host operating system which is locked down, cannot be changed. You can install containers on it, but if you really want to optimize the distro on a deep fundamental level, you want to have absolutely control over it. It's just one of many examples. And so for one person might VanillaOS be the best Linux distro ever, because maybe for work environment wants to have some extra amount of stability, etc., good and fine. But for someone who really wants to get into the nitty-gritty, let's just say, and is performance oriented, for example, and wants to have an operating system absolutely under his control or her control, and does not want to be limited by any factor whatsoever, an immutable distro might not be a great choice. And I mean, this is one of many examples here. For example, then you can find out Debian Linux distros, although I would say they are great beginner distros, just for you to get a rough understanding, because most SorenOS, for example, is Ubuntu based, Ubuntu being Debian based, for example, so they are all linking back to it, more or less. When I'm talking from the perspective of someone who is using Linux on an intermediate level, let's just say, and who might think, what do I want Linux distro to do? Do I want to just have a base operating system I can install and have everything configured for me, for example? Do I want the packages to be absolutely stable, but maybe outdated, for example? then a Debian system might be better for them. If I do possess more knowledge over Linux distros, for example, and I want, for example, have always the newest packages, an Arch-based system. But the package versions is just one of many factors here, okay? Because many Linux distros, for example, come with the same distro per se, but have made some changes to the kernel, for example, to make it easier to optimize for different setting. While the other distro is focusing on a different path while having the exact same repositories. I mean, that might sound confusing if you're an absolute beginner. This is why I've just said use SoraNoise. And what I really want to get into is to use SoraNoise, for example, play with it, figure around, and then maybe install some live ISO Linux distros. Because with Linux distros, you can install Linux distros on a USB stick, a boot USB stick. I know, not surprising for anyone. But what you can do, you can plug them in, and instead of installing them, you go into the live menu. And in which, instead of installing the distro, just play around. How does it handle packages? So you can work with it, fiddle around. And when you remove the USB stick after rebooting, then you get back to your regular system you've installed previously without any changes that have been made to your system. So which distro is the best for you? Because that itself can change, can evolve. Because first of all, when your knowledge of Linux improves, then your preferences might change. For example, earlier in the beginning of your Linux journey, let's just say, you have just worked with a Debian system because it did everything for you, it was configured for you, but then later on you get more and more knowledge and say, yeah, okay, I want to have more control over my operating system. What distro might fulfill my need in that regard? So what I'm trying to say here is that, first of all, there is no perfect Linux distro for you. And distro hopping, let's just say the internal desire to switch Linux distro every week, is an absolute curse. If you are more intermediate Linux users, you might start to get this disease, okay? But that's my recommendation for you is, do not stress yourself, take it slowly, chill out, and really learn and work at your own pace. Do not let any YouTuber or internet forum article say and confuse you into switching this Linux distro because it's the best ever, and yeah, there is no such Linux distro. I mean, yeah, I'm joking about Arch-based distros being the best, and take your time, fiddle around, play with the live boot menu or install inside a virtual machine, and work step by step. Thanks for watching this video. I hope this video was kinda helpful for you beginners and for people who are a bit overwhelmed with the amount of possibilities. Use SoraNoise, because switching from Microsoft Windows to Linux is really like exiting a cave, because everything was linear, concentrated, all the same, and then you leave the cave and bam, the open world opens up to you and you are a bit scared. It's a stupid comparison, but yeah. Keep working, because there's still much to do, and go read Berserk.